a plant that European households hung dried in every room from the medieval period through the 19th century. It released its compounds slowly into the surrounding air for up to 6 months. It neutralized odor. It repelled insects. It required no spray mechanism, no electricity, no synthetic chemical, and no recurring purchase. Then, in 1948, a company called Airwick introduced the first commercial air freshener to the American market. Within 20 years, the synthetic version had replaced the natural one in virtually every household in the Western world. The plant still grows. The knowledge of what it did was simply no longer profitable to preserve. Not because the plant stopped working, because a product that lasts 6 months cannot sustain a company that needs you back every 2 weeks. Subscribe and hit the bell. Every share helps preserve what they tried to erase. The archive opens in ancient Rome. The word lavender comes from the Latin lavar, to wash. Roman households did not use the plant as decoration. They used it as infrastructure. Dried lavender stalks were placed inside linen closets to prevent moth damage. Bundled stems were laid beneath sleeping mats to repel bedbugs. Crushed flower heads were scattered across stone floors in public buildings, where foot traffic released the volatile oils into the surrounding air. The rooms did not smell like lavender for aesthetic reasons. They smelled like lavender because lavender was how Rome managed air quality indoors before chemistry existed. The mechanism was not understood. The result was rooms treated with dried lavender stayed fresher. Fabric stored with it lasted longer. Grain kept beside it attracted fewer pests. Roman households maintained the practice the way modern households maintain a thermostat. It was not a choice. It was a system. By the medieval period, the practice had become institutional. English households of every economic class used what were called strewing herbs, fresh or dried plant material scattered across floors, stuffed into mattresses, hung from beams, and tucked into every enclosed space in the home. The plant list was specific. Lavender for fragrance and pest control. Rosemary for antibacterial action. Thyme for insect repellent. Meadowsweet for odor absorption. Tansy for flea suppression. Rue for general cleansing. Queen Elizabeth I employed a royal herb strewer, a paid position in the royal household. The job was to ensure that dried herbs were maintained in every room the Queen might enter. The position survived in the British monarchy for over 300 years. It was not ceremonial, it was functional. The herbs managed air quality. They controlled insects. They reduced the bacterial load in enclosed spaces during centuries when ventilation was poor and disease was constant. During the Great Plague of 1665, London physicians carried bundles of dried lavender and rosemary pressed against their faces when entering infected houses. The famous plague doctor mask, with its long beak, was filled with dried aromatic herbs. The doctors believed they were filtering poisoned air. What they were actually doing was exposing airborne pathogens to volatile plant compounds with genuine antimicrobial properties. The science was wrong. The result was accidentally right. By the Victorian era, the practice had been refined into an art form. Lavender sachets placed in every drawer, cedar blocks stored with woolens, potpourri bowls maintained in parlors, dried herb bundles hung in kitchens and bedrooms. Every middle-class household in England, France, and Germany maintained some version of this system. The knowledge was passed from mother to daughter as routine domestic practice, not medicine, not science, just how you kept a house. A dried lavender bundle cut in July and hung in a bedroom would maintain its aromatic release until the following January. 6 months, some varieties lasted longer. The oils degraded slowly because the plant tissue holding them intact dried rather than decomposed. The release rate was governed by temperature and humidity. In winter, when homes were sealed against cold and indoor air quality suffered most, the dried herbs released their compounds more slowly, creating a sustained low-level treatment that worked continuously without any intervention. Now the science that the Victorian housewife knew by practice and that modern chemistry confirmed by measurement. Lavender contains over 200 identified volatile compounds. The two most concentrated are linalool and linalool acetate. Both are terpene alcohols. In 2009, researchers at the University of Port Elizabeth published findings showing that linalool vapor at ambient concentrations inhibited the growth of multiple bacterial strains, including Staphylococcus aureus, In 2014, a team at the Hacettepe University in Turkey demonstrated that lavender essential oil vapor reduced airborne bacterial colony counts in enclosed test spaces by 60 to 89% within 2 hours. Cedar contains thujaplicin, a tryptophan compound that is antifungal and antibacterial. It is the reason cedar-lined closets prevent mildew and moth damage. The compound is released continuously from the wood grain at room temperature. A cedar block placed in a closet maintains its antifungal activity for years, not months, years. Rosemary contains 18-cineol and camphor. Both are volatile at room temperature. Both have documented antimicrobial activity against common household bacteria. A dried rosemary bundle hung in a kitchen releases these compounds continuously into the cooking space. None of these plants mask odor. All of them neutralize odor-causing bacteria through direct chemical interaction. The mechanism is fundamentally different from what a commercial air freshener does. Here is what the commercial air freshener actually does. Febreze was launched by Procter & Gamble in 1996. The active ingredient is hydroxypropyl beta-cyclodextrin, a ring-shaped sugar molecule that physically traps odor molecules inside its structure. It does not neutralize them, it cages them. The odor compounds remain chemically intact inside the cyclodextrin ring. If you heat a Febreze-treated surface, the cage opens and the odor returns. The product did not remove the smell, it hid it. Most other commercial air fresheners do not even attempt to trap odors. They overwhelm the olfactory system with synthetic fragrance compounds at concentrations high enough to prevent the nose from detecting the underlying smell. The odor is still present. Your nose has been overloaded. In 2007, the Natural Resources Defense Council tested 14 of the most popular air freshener brands sold in the United States. 12 of the 14 contained phthalates. Phthalates are plasticizer chemicals used as fragrance carriers. They are classified as endocrine disruptors. They were not listed on any of the 12 product labels. The FDA does not require air freshener manufacturers to disclose individual fragrance ingredients, because fragrance formulations are classified as proprietary trade secrets. You cannot read the label and know what you are breathing. The law permits this. The same 2007 NRDC report identified synthetic musks, including galaxolide and tonalide, in multiple products. These compounds bioaccumulate in human tissue and have been detected in breast milk. Acetaldehyde, a compound classified as a probable human carcinogen by the International Agency for Research on Cancer, was found in several products at concentrations the researchers described as concerning for long-term indoor exposure. A dried lavender bundle contains linolo acetate and approximately 200 other plant compounds that have been inhaled by human beings for 3,000 years without a single documented case of adverse respiratory effect at ambient dried herb concentrations. One product has 3,000 years of human exposure data. The other has 50 years and a list of ingredients the company will not let you read. Now follow the money. The global air freshener market was valued at $14.3 billion in 2023, projected to reach $18.60 billion by 2030. The three dominant companies are Procter & Gamble, which makes Febreze, SC Johnson, which makes Glade, and Reckitt Benckiser, which owns Airwick. Combined, they control approximately 60% of the global market. The average American household purchases air freshener products 26 times per year. Each product lasts 3 to 7 days. The annual cost per household ranges from $80 to $150, depending on product type and brand preference. A lavender plant costs $3 at a garden center. It is a perennial. It returns every year without replanting. A single mature lavender bush produces enough stems to create dried bundles for every room in a house for a full season. After establishment, it requires no fertilizer, no pesticide, no irrigation in most climates. It blooms every summer. You cut it in July. You hang it to dry for 2 weeks. You distribute the bundles. They work until January. Then you wait for July and do it again. $3 once versus $120 per year forever. But here is the part the industry requires you not to think about. The lavender does not just freshen air. It repels moths from closets. It deters mosquitoes from bedrooms. It reduces airborne bacteria in kitchens. It promotes measurably better sleep quality through direct interaction with GABA receptors in the brain. A 2015 study published in the journal Evidence-Based, Complementary, and Alternative Medicine documented that lavender aroma exposure improved sleep quality scores in ICU patients by a statistically significant margin compared to controls. One plant, cut once a year, performs 4 functions simultaneously. The air freshener industry sells you separate products for each of those functions: a fragrance spray for the living room, a moth repellent for the closet, a mosquito repellent for the bedroom, a sleep aid for the nightstand, for products, for purchases, for revenue streams from one company, for one function each. The lavender bush replaces all 4 for $3 once. Procter & Gamble spent $500 million launching Febreze in a single year. SC Johnson spends hundreds of millions annually marketing Glade. Reckitt Benckiser maintains global advertising campaigns for Airwick across over 60 countries. These are not small budgets. These are not accidental expenditures. They are investments in a single proposition: that fresh air requires a purchased product. It does not. Fresh air requires a plant. The same plant that Roman households scattered on their floors. The same plant that plague doctors stuffed into their masks. The same plant that Queen Elizabeth's herb strewer maintained in every room of the palace. The same plant that Victorian mothers bundled and hung from bedroom beams every July. You can grow lavender in USDA zones 5 through 9, which covers most of the continental United States. It requires full sun and well-drained soil. It does not tolerate wet feet. Planted in spring, after the last frost in soil, amended with sand or gravel, if your ground is heavy clay. Do not fertilize. Lavender, grown in rich soil, produces more foliage, but fewer flowers. Poor soil produces more concentrated oils. The plant you neglect produces better medicine than the one you pamper. Harvest when the first flowers on the stem have opened, but the top buds have not. Cut the stems long, bundle 8 to 10 stems with string or a rubber band. Hang upside down in a dark, well-ventilated space for 2 weeks. The bundles are ready when the stems snap cleanly and the flowers feel papery. Place 1 bundle per room: bedroom, kitchen, bathroom, closet. Hang them or lay them in a dish. They will release their volatile compounds continuously for 4 to 6 months. When the scent fades, crush the flowers gently between your fingers to break open the remaining oil glands. This resets the release for another month. 1 cutting. 6 months of clean air, no spray, no plug-in, no synthetic fragrance molecule, no phthalate, no trade secret, no recurring purchase. For 3,000 years, this was how humans managed indoor air. For the last 75 years, a $14 billion industry has managed it instead. The difference between the two is not effectiveness. The difference is that one of them runs out, and the one that runs out is the one they sell. The lavender is still growing. In gardens, in abandoned lots, in the ornamental borders of the same office parks, whose bathrooms are stocked with Glade plugins. It blooms every summer. It asks for nothing. It has been working since Rome. It works today. The only thing it cannot do is generate a quarterly earnings report. And that is why you buy the spray. If this story opens something for you, subscribe and hit the bell. Every like and every share preserves what they tried to erase. The next story opens soon.